Okay, we are in the book of Hosea. We are actually working our way through the minor prophets, and we're in the first book of that group, the book of Hosea. We have covered well, first of all, we covered some background material before we got into the book, and now we are up to chapter 3 of the book. That's where we are. Let me remind you of just a little bit of what we have studied so far. You know, there are a lot of people that claim there's a different God in the Old Testament than there is in the New. But the book of Hosea is presenting the heart of God. And you know, it's the same heart that he has in the New Testament. He is not one bit different. It's the same God from beginning to end. We looked at chapter 1. Chapter 1 is a summary of the entire story of the book of Hosea. It doesn't give as many details as we start to get in some of the additional chapters, but it's talking about the unfaithfulness of the nation Israel. It's using the picture of the prophet Hosea, who had an unfaithful wife, and we're going to be talking about that unfaithful wife in this particular study. But then it moves on to redemption. Each chapter, chapter 1 and chapter 2, have presented or have ended with the redemption particularly of Israel, the northern nation Israel. But also, I think this is a presentation to the southern nation of Judah and to the church. We need to listen to this. Hosea was commanded to marry. Now, I'm teaching this a little different than most pastors do. And so I ask you to check me out. There's every chance in the world I'm wrong. But I believe that God commanded Hosea to marry a lady from the nation that was unfaithful to him. I don't believe he asked Hosea to marry a prostitute. Now, she turned out to be such. But I don't believe she was necessarily such as he married her. Anyway, from there, let me remind you of some of what we have seen in the book so far. We saw that God commanded Hosea to name his children, and he called the first son Jazreel, which means God will sow. Now, that's not sow like sew a piece of cloth. It's like sow seeds. And he's talking about sowing Israel and sowing Israel to grow. He had a daughter, named her Ruhamah, which means no pity, no mercy. And that's exactly what he says he was going to have on Israel because of their unfaithfulness. Then he had another son, Lo Ami, means not my people. And we wind up coming down to the fact that God made Israel his people again. We didn't talk about the name of Hosea's wife. His wife was named Gomer. That word means completeness, complete or completeness. And we'll see how that applies as we go on through our study today. As we get into this, we'll be in chapter 3. It's only 5 verses. You'd think I'd be able to do it real quickly, but don't bet on it. Anyway, this is a chapter that will help us to understand God's eternal plan. Oh my, it's a powerful chapter. Let me just give you a short version of what the chapter is about, and then we'll dig into the word and we'll see it as we get there. First of all, it starts with the broken heart of Hosea. His wife had, after giving him the 3 children, And some believe that at least the second two were part of that is, the second two children were part of her adultery. But we're not told that that's the case. So there are a lot of preachers that make it absolute that that's what happened, but I don't want to say that. Anyway, he had a broken heart that his wife had run off from him. Hosea was a prophet. Think about what a wife running off into prostitution would do to his respect as a prophet. Oh, man, they mess him up good. But God was using that to say how Israel was messing him up. The wife's name, or the wife, was to complete the ministry of Hosea. It was a message, a picture of the completeness that Israel was supposed to be with God. They were messing up. But God commanded Hosea to go get her. He had to go find her, and I'm going to say she was in the bed with another man. She may not have physically been there when he first found her, but that's where she had been. It was his wife, but he had to pay the cost to get her back. And God will go get the unfaithful Israel, and that's what the chapter comes down to. Was God going to get the unfaithful nation of Israel? We're going to look at three things, three aspects of the chapter here. We're going to look at God's command to go and God's command to love. Oh man, that's going to be tough. Then we're going to look at many days. It doesn't say days there, it says many day. I'm sorry. But many days without, and we'll talk about what it is without. And then we'll talk about the return. Each one of these chapters has a return to the Lord. Oh my, the Lord is really insistent on that. So starting with verse 1, go love. Then said the Lord unto me, that's the Lord said to Hosea, go yet, love a woman beloved of her friend. Now, some pastors think that Hosea went to get another woman, but I don't believe so. I believe this is Gomer that he's going to get. Then said the Lord unto me, go yet, love a woman beloved of her friend, yet an adulteress, according to the love of the Lord toward the children of Israel, who look to other gods and love flagons of wine. Now, God commanded Hosea to do a very difficult task, to go to where she's living with some other guy. At least he finds her with some other guy. This would be a terrible embarrassment. The wife in another's bed. Not only to get her, but to love her. Not only just to get her and bring her back, but to love her. Now, by the fact that this is written for us to read, we can assume that this was a public thing. Everybody knew what kind of a wife this was. How do you think you could face your family, face your church, your community, if your wife were doing this? I hope there's some ladies listening, and you can put that as your husband. But it's public. Everybody knows it. The book of the New Testament brings out some things here, and in 1 Corinthians chapter 13, most of you know what this chapter is, but verses 4 and 5 say charity, and the word charity is a word that's normally translated love, and so I'm going to read it love. Love suffereth long and is kind. Love envieth not. Love vaunteth not itself, is not puffed up, doth not behave itself unseemly, seeketh not her own, is not easily provoked, thinketh no evil. Charity or love suffers long and is kind. Charity or love envieth not. Charity vaunteth not itself. Oh man, I can see Hosea going after his wife and saying, "Look what you've done to me." No, it's not what he does at all. It's not puffed up. Self-respect can be an idol. Hosea went there with no self-respect. Public, oh, love suffers long and is kind. You know, you can't command love. God commanded Hosea to go to get Gomer and to love her. You can't command love. That's something that's very personal and internal. But I think the prophet loved the Lord enough that he is going to love also his wife Gomer. But I want you to feel the prophet's heart. I want you to feel the disgrace that he was suffering. What if this happened to your pastor? Think of the painful results that would be on him and on his church. And I know of some pastors that this has happened to. You just think about that. Also, think about the Lord and his pains that he's going through relative to the nation Israel. Let's go back to Hosea 3:1 again. Then said the Lord unto me, Go yet, love a woman beloved of her friend, yet an adulteress, according to the love of the Lord toward the children of Israel. Remember, this is a picture of what the Lord is going through toward the children of Israel, who look to other gods and love flagons of wine. Oh, man. Remember, God had a covenant with Abraham, and that covenant was unbreakable. The nation Israel, both the southern and the northern nation, were meant to complete God and bring honor to God. Evaluate the names. Hosea. Hosea means salvation. Gomer means completeness. And then Jezreel is the plan of God. God was to sow through these people, to sow in the world. Completeness, Gomer turned to prostitution. God is in the same boat as Hosea. The nation Israel had turned to prostitution. They were going after other gods. Does God have emotions? Well, I don't know. But Isaiah was a prophet at approximately the same time as Hosea. And he was a prophet to the southern nation of Judah, and Hosea being a prophet to the northern nation of Israel. But Hosea tells us in Isaiah tells us in chapter 57, the first few verses here, and we'll read several more than the first two, says, The righteous perisheth, and no man layeth it to heart. Oh, man. The righteous perish, and people don't care. Folks, that's very much what's going on in our nation right now. The righteous perishing. Nobody cares. Men and women are living together without marriage. No big deal. Women are having abortions, killing their babies. People don't care. The righteous perisheth, and no man taketh it to heart. And merciful men are taken away, none considering that the righteous is taken away from the evil to come. He shall enter into peace, and they shall rest in their beds, each one walking in his unrighteousness. But draw near hither, ye sons of sorcerers, the seed of adulterers and the whore. Sounds very much like the book of Hosea. Against whom do ye sport yourselves? Against whom make ye a wide mouth and draw out the tongue? Are ye not children of transgression, a seed of falsehood? Inflaming yourselves with idols. Remember, most of the worship of these idols had to do with sexual activity. That's the way they worshiped. Folks, some of that's going on even in churches. And churches are approving of immorality. They're even approving of homosexuality. Inflaming yourselves with idols under every green tree, slaying the children in the valleys under the cliffs and rocks. Folks, they were feeding their children to the idol Molech. We call that Planned Parenthood in our country. Among the smooth stones of the streams is thy portion. They are thy lot. Even to them hast thou poured a drink offering, and thou hast offered a meat offering. Should I receive comfort in these? Folks, the drink and meat offering were the type of offerings that should have been given to the Lord, and they're being given to idols. This is in Judah we're talking about, not the northern nation Israel, but in Judah. Upon a lofty and high mountain hast thou set thy bed. Even thither wentest thou up to offer sacrifice. Behind the doors also and the post hast thou set up thy remembrance, for thou hast discovered thyself to another. Thou hast discovered thyself to another. That's sexual activity, folks. To another than me, and art gone up. Thou hast enlarged thy bed, and made thee a covenant with them. Thou lovest their bed where thou sawest it. We need to move on. Our God is all-knowing. He knows the beginning to the end. He knew all this was going on. Completeness, yeah, but he knew it beforehand. Still hurts. Isaiah was speaking to Judah, Hosea to Israel, but they got very similar messages. Judah was offering drink and meat offerings to idols. Those are offerings that should have been offered to the Lord God. Is God comforted by them knowing the type of offerings that they should be made when they're being offered to idols? No, he's not comforted by that. Verse 2 in Hosea 3. So I brought her, remember, Hosea was commanded to go and get Gomer and bring her back. So I bought her to me for 15 pieces of silver, and an homer of barley, and a half homer of barley. Folks, let me see if I've got it in a slide. This offering was an insult. Hosea went to find his wife. He found his wife, but he had to pay for her. Folks, we belong to the Lord. He created us, but he had to pay a price, a dear price for us. Jesus died on the cross for us. Those offerings are an insult. Not only did he find Gomer, but he had to pay for her. You know, there are some cult leaders that have brought in sexuality as being an issue. And I'm speaking specifically of the Mormons. The Mormon leader there went out, and he was such a charismatic guy that he was able to draw men's wives to him. Those men didn't pay for their wives like Hosea did. They actually murdered the guy. I shouldn't laugh at that. Murder's not funny. But the church calls that persecution. That wasn't persecution. That cult leader was persecuting the people with immorality. Hosea was not a violent guy. The price demanded for slaves in the book of Exodus is 30 pieces of silver. The price that was paid for Jesus was 30 pieces of silver. The price paid for Gomer was 15 pieces of silver plus 1.5 homer of barley. Now, some commentators say that 1.5 homer of barley was worth 15 pieces of silver, which would make that total come up to be the 30 pieces of silver. Now, I can't justify that, so I'm not going to say that that's the case, but maybe. It certainly would make sense. Verse 3. Now, we have just gone from go love to many days without. Hosea 3, verse 3 says, "And I say unto her, Thou shalt abide for me many days. Thou shalt not play the harlot. Thou shalt not be for another man. So will I also be for thee." Hosea is saying, he's telling Gomer that she's going to come and live with him. They're not going to have sexual activity together. He's going to be honest about the way he lives, and he wants her to be honest about the way she lives. Now, that's, again, that's a picture of what's going to happen to, or what is happening to Israel. Verse 4, "For the children of Israel shall abide many days without a king, without a prince, without a sacrifice, without an image, and without an ephod, and without a teraphim." Now, let me just tell you, God's love is amazing. It should never happen that he had to pay for us. It should never happen, but love suffers long. The Lord and Israel were separated for a long time. 722 BC until still today, Israel is not gathered together. That's over 2,700 years, and it still is going to happen. But Israel, for many days, is going to be without a king. Now, the king that was promised to them was King David, and Jesus is the King of Israel. Jesus is of the seed of David. That's what we see in the books of Matthew and Luke. Now, I've been through that before, so I'm not going to go through it again. But it says they're going to be without a prince. And a prince is a son of the king. They're going to be without a prince. They're going to be without a sacrifice. Uh, the Lord demands sacrifices. Now, this I find a little bit humorous. Um, my Hebrew teacher was saying that there was going to be a temple built. I'm glad the people of Israel, people of Judah, know that there's going to be a temple built, and it's going to be built in Jerusalem. But her comment was that she hopes they're not sacrificing animals there. They're going to be sacrificing animals, but they're going to be without an image. They're going to be without idols to worship. They're going to be without an ephod. Now, an ephod is a thing that the high priest would wear, and this was something they're going to be without that, and they're going to be without a teraphim. Now, this word teraphim is used in only one place in Scripture. That's here in Hosea. And I'll tell you, there are a lot of guesses about what that is, but really nobody knows what that is that the Lord's talking about. So when he comes back, he'll have to tell us that. Verse 5. We've moved into the return. You know, we've got a wonderful Lord. He's got a plan. He had it from the beginning. Afterward shall the children of Israel return. Each one of these chapters, again, each one of them has told us about the return. I think the Lord is just as excited about that as we should be. Afterward shall the children of Israel return and seek the Lord their God and David their king. Oh, we know who David their king is. And shall fear the Lord and his goodness in the latter days. It's going to happen in the latter days. Now, in chapter 1, it gave us some information there. We went through this before, but just to remind you of what we saw there, it says, Yet the number of the children of Israel shall be as the sand of the sea. Now, that's a promise that God gave to Abraham, which cannot be measured nor numbered. And it shall come to pass that in the place where it was said unto them, this was said unto Abraham in the land of Israel, ye shall not be my people. This is said to Hosea in the northern portion of Israel. Ye shall not be my people. That is the name Lo-Ami. There shall it be said unto them, ye are the sons of the living God. Ami. It's going to change from Lo-Ami to Ami. Lo means no, or not. Then verse 11 of that same chapter, chapter 1. Then shall the children of Judah and the children of Israel be gathered together and appoint themselves one head, and they shall come out of the land, for great shall be the day of Jezreel. Look at this. It says, the children of Judah and the children of Israel shall be together. Today, the nation that we call Israel is only Judah. It's only Judah. Then in chapter 2, talking about the return, says, I will even betroth thee. The Lord is saying that he will betroth Israel. He will marry Israel. I will betroth thee unto me in faithfulness, and thou shalt know the Lord. And it shall come to pass in that day, I will hear, saith the Lord, I will hear the heavens, and they shall hear the earth. Verse 22. And the earth shall hear the corn, and the wine, and the oil, and they shall hear Jezreel. Well, let's read on, because the Lord interprets that. And I will sow her unto me. The Lord will sow Israel unto him. and I will sow her unto me in the earth, and I will have mercy upon her that had not obtained mercy. Lo Ruhamah, Ruhamah. I will have mercy upon her that had not obtained mercy. Remember, they have been taken off by the nation Assyria, and it was a horrible taking off. And I will say unto them which were not my people, Lo Ami, I will say unto them that were not my people, Thou art my people, Ami, my people. And they shall say, Thou art my God. Oh, that's a time still to come. Possibly in one of our studies, we will try to put all these prophecies together. But this is talking about the last days. Israel is not lost to God. God knows exactly where they are. Now, in the book of Revelation, Revelation 7, 1 through 10, it talks about the coming of the Lord, that is him gathering the people of Israel together, the coming together of Judah and Israel, and he lists the tribes. He says that there are going to be 144,000 of Israel sealed, and they're of the tribe of Judah, Benjamin, Gad, Asher, Naphtali, Manasseh, Simeon, Levi, Issachar, Zebulun, Joseph, and Benjamin. Now, those are the 12 tribes of Israel that are going to be gathered together. 12,000 from each tribe are going to be sealed during the tribulation time. Now, there are two tribes that are not mentioned in that list, the tribe of Ephraim and the tribe of Dan. Now, the tribe of Joseph was mentioned. See there, number 11, the tribe of Joseph was mentioned. Ephraim was a son of Joseph. So, and the other son of Joseph was number 6, was Manasseh. So possibly we can say Ephraim was actually listed in that group. He just the name was given as as Ephraim's father, but Dan is not listed. Now, I don't know why Dan is not listed. I've heard some preachers guess at why Dan is not listed, but I have to say I don't really know. This book of Hosea was written to Israel, the northern 10 tribes. But I want you to remember, God said in 2 Timothy chapter 3 and verse 16, says, all scripture is given for our profit. Our profit. This prophecy is sure. It's going to happen. But the church needs to evaluate. You know, there are idols in the church. There's corruption in the church. We see all kinds of things in the news about sexual involvement of pastors with their congregation, particularly with the young ones of the congregation. But that was the same basis as Israel had with their idols. It's wrong, church. It's wrong. We need to eliminate idols, corporate idols, and individual idols. I need to eliminate idols in my life. You need to eliminate idols in your life. The church, corporate church, needs to eliminate idols. They all need to go. Some other aspects of what we've seen here in this is forgiveness. Forgiveness is very important. Forgiveness doesn't mean approval of what went on there. Infidelity is sin. It's sin. It's sin. It's hurtful to the family. It's hurtful to the church. It's hurtful to society. But still, it's forgivable. Forgiveness can be painful, But love suffers long and is kind. It doesn't remind the sinner of his sin. It loves the sinner. But sometimes full restoration takes long. And that's what it is with Israel worshiping idols. There will be long, don't know how long, don't know when the Lord's coming. But, excuse me, went the wrong way. God is going to restore Israel in his time. For us, we need to look for idols in our lives. You know, they can be pride. They can be money. They can be sexual things. Folks, there are people in the church that are dealing with pornography. I had a man in my church come to me one time and ask if I had ever had massage. He was telling me how wonderful massages were and that I needed to go have a massage. And then he made a statement. He says, it's almost like adultery. And I said, man, I don't want anything to do with that. Now, I'm sure there's some masseuses that, and I don't know if that's the way you pronounce it, but there's some that do not make it an adulterous type thing. But we need to keep our hands off of each other, particularly when it feels like adultery. I told that gentleman that he needed to stop having massages. I don't know whether he did or not. He moved away. Haven't seen him in a long time. But we need to recognize that the payment for our sin was painful to God. It's painful, but he loves us with a love. Folks, he tells us in John chapter 10, verses 25 down through about verse 30, that he holds us in his hands. He holds us there. But we need to get there. It tells us in Romans chapter 10 and verse 9 that if thou shalt confess with thy mouth the Lord Jesus and shalt believe in thine heart that God hath raised him from the dead, thou shalt be saved. To get in his hand, you need to be saved. He's holding Israel in his hands. They're without a bunch of things. And folks, if you've got sin in your life, you're going to be without. You need to have a close relationship to the Lord. You need to grow in that relationship. You need to decide that now I'm going to live for the Lord. Now's the time to live for the Lord. Be saved and live for the Lord. Thank you.